Okay, hello, my name is PleasedBit, and I'm really curious. I've got a question. So, I did, as you can probably tell, a Strat Main run. I'm the Paladin Healer, Belrith or whatever. This is a pain-in-the-ass dungeon. It turns into one hell of a shit show, but we make it through in the end, so spoiler alert for that. And I just want to ask, basically, the internet, is this normal for Strat Main? So I've done 2 runs of Strat Main on this character recently, and both turn into shit shows, right? So the first one, we make it to the 3rd pack before the whole thing falls apart and everyone just leaves, and I'm just sitting there going, well, that was fun. And this time, I won't spoil it for you, other than to say it goes poorly. So, I'm starting off with so we got a monk tank here, and I'm just spamming my little heart out. He pulls 2 packs, and just immediately everything goes to pot. Now, this is the 2nd dungeon I've done on this character today, so I'm still a little bit confused as to which buttons to push, and my hands aren't quite warmed up yet. That's my excuse for not being immediately perfect on this first pull, and I'm going to stick with it, so shut up. You can blame me for anything else after that. Anyway, the pull goes poorly, tank dies, reses, runs back, tank dies, reses, run back. We've got a druid in here, as you can see, who's throwing in some off heals. He ends up being a pretty useful ally throughout the whole thing, so we'll talk about him some more, I'm sure. As we'll talk about almost everyone here. I think the Hunter did almost nothing, just damage and hung out. So, hi Hunter, if you actually see this for some reason, cotton candy. Yeah, you did good. Just keep up. Stick with it. Anyway, so this is kind of when it goes from, oh god, to, oh my god, what the hell. So, the monk pulls in. I'm obviously eating, no problem. It's only one pull, right? A monk can survive for about 30 seconds against the pull on his own before I show up, so I run in and do my thing. And right away here is when it's going to become amazing. Okay, maybe not right away. Maybe it's the next pull. Sorry, I just did this. My memory is faulty. So, I guess I should give myself some background on this. This is, in fact, my main paladin. I've mulliganed paladins a couple of times. Absolutely hate healing with them. But it is the last healer I've got to cap, so here we go. Try again. I've got a paladin who's slightly higher level than this, so I've kind of done this a little bit. I know what the buttons, I've got all my macros set up. And what I'm working on in terms of self-improvement, here's where it all goes to shit. And you can see on the right there, we've got the abomination coming in. Here he comes. And yeah. What I'm working on is, one, getting just more comfortable with buttons, first of all. 2, I'm working on hitting my dispels. So my dispels is my goal this dungeon run, so that's kind of what I'm focusing on. So you'll see I make a whole lot of mistakes around everything else, but I'm hitting okay dispels. Still working on it, but that's okay. Anyway, big pull comes in, so this is the 2nd really big pull. The tank initiated the first one intentionally. I believe the tank initiated the 2nd one unintentionally, so I don't blame our friend Tonix for anything that goes down here. It's definitely not totally his fault. Just everyone, of course, immediately dies, and I'm just bar staring and spamming my little heart out. I'm going to fall over dead. Cotton Candy's going to fall over dead shortly afterwards. Yeah, it's all bad. So, anyway, if this was how the whole dungeon went, I probably wouldn't be making this video. Because you'll probably note from the fact that my YouTube channel has literally nothing else in it, that I don't really do the YouTube thing. I just really wanted to, 1, share, because this dungeon ends up being, I think in the end, inspirational, and 2, ask, holy shit, is this really how this always goes down? So we've got the 2nd abomination chasing us around. The first one was a pain in the ass, the 2nd one's more of a pain in the ass, and you'll see here in the chat our mage yells right there. It's like, what the hell? Kill the abomination. I'm just like, oh god, run away. I don't want to die again. And you'll see here as the Abomination finally gets picked up by a tank. And wait for it. No? Oh, yeah. Well, not quite. Sorry. I'm getting really confused. Anyway, obviously the first thing you do is, if you don't get kicked, and thank goodness this isn't the Wrath of the Lich King era, and I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't insult the tank. I'm a little bit salty about that second pull there, but never mind. So he comes in, and oh my gosh, Mage, what the heck were you doing? Like, you're a nice guy and all. Watch this. So Mage runs off to the right, pulls a mob over on the right side there. He blinks into it, does damage, runs away. And obviously I'm going to heal him, and it gets picked up into the pull. And if you've done this dungeon enough times, you'll know that the Courier and Fraz Slabi there, I don't know, Siabi? Whatever his name is, they're awful. Mostly the Courier, though. The Courier is really annoying. One of them does the stun. I believe it's Sabi that's doing the Courier. Siabi. That's an I, not an L. Siabi's doing the sleep, and the Courier is doing a silence. And between those two things, obviously, terrible happens. This is when the tank gets pissed, and as you've probably guessed by now, he leaves. So, the rest of this pull is just spam my heart out, spam. And if this was Wrath of the Lich King era, I guarantee 100% that it's what the hell healer, how come you can't keep this alive, kicked. Thankfully, and maybe this is part of the inspirational bit, thankfully we're not in Wrath of the Lich King. And people are a lot more understanding and patient and realizing that if they're not doing their job, then they're going to die. So there's a lot of people who've kind of figured out that it's the DPS's role and the healer's role and the tank's role to keep the whole group alive. And that sleep is devastating, isn't it? Because he sleeps for long enough and I miss a cast. Don't dispel the sleep right away. And he's dead. That's it. So, like, that's it. So, sorry, Corvus, that was definitely my fault. So, that druid, like I said, I was going to talk about him a little bit. So, it turns out he's Guardian Spec, and has been Guardian Spec this whole time. And I don't know what he was thinking, or why he was running around as a boomkin, but he was. So, obviously, if you've played a druid, you'll know that their second row talents are a second spec to pick, basically. And it's basically a gutted version of the second spec. It does 90%, maybe even less, 80% of what that spec does, at least at this level. Once you get up to cap, it's a little bit worse than that, but not much. And here's me just rolling my eyes and shit. Once again, like this happens more than once, by the way, is that I'm sitting eating with my back turned to where the mobs are spawning. I'm like, not sure how I managed to pull that one off, but whatever. So our Guardian Druid hops in there and starts beating people up. I suspect that he knows how awful this place is, and for you prospective Guardians out there, now, this guy is Guardian Spec, and I do not know, off the top of my head, what level you get your heal at. But I don't think he ever uses it once this whole time, which I suspect is just because it gets at a slightly higher level. But he is doing Ironbark, and for other druids, about level 55 or so, it becomes really tough to be a Guardian Druid. From experience, I know this. In Legion, Guardian Druid was my go-to, and it's because everything starts hitting super hard, as you can kind of tell. I think every tank struggles, but Guardian has a specifically awful time. So that's my guess as to why this guy's running around as the weirdest boomkin ever. Like, doesn't want to learn the full rotation, so we'll do the half rotation. So, whatever. It's good enough. We're not really fussed about the optimal damage in a level 55 dungeon. So anyway, here's our second tank. Spoiler alert, he's also going to go and pull everything. Here he goes. And at this point, I roll my eyes. Like, literally in the dungeon, I'm just like, oh god, why? So he's a little bit tankier than that monk, thank goodness. And so this doesn't end immediately horribly terribly. So we're kind of on the knife's edge, He's using Light of Dawn, I believe this... No, that's my AoE, Light of Dawn. Anyway, he's using his heal to help me out, and the druid once in a while will throw it off heals. So we're actually going to make it through this without too much spam, just spam, 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 spam. I'm not sure if this is totally the way Paladin is supposed to be played, but this is how I always feel like I'm playing when in Paladin, and then I'm just like, oh my god, this is boring. And my level 15 talent is the one that reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock whenever I use Crusader Strike, and when I get to do that, so much better, but right now it's just spam, 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 spam. Anyway, we get Patchwork Horror, or another Abomination, and Skull is hitting me, and Paladin hasn't picked him up. Crusader Shield, if you just throw the shield... Anyway, he probably hasn't noticed. I'm trying to kite him back, and so apologies for the camera angle. I'm just bar staring horribly. I look up and... yeah. Obviously the tank gets flattened immediately. And he says, what the fuck? And he's gone. Apologies for language, by the way. I don't like to swear, so apologies for that, but it was him, not me. Anyway, we're dead. You can kind of see there where I just gave up, stopped healing. We were gonna die anyway. It was non-redeemable. And there it goes, another tank. What is it with Stratholme? So this is the second dungeon I've done of Stratholme again on this character, and the first one we made it 3 pulls in, and the second one we made it several more pulls in, but we're still losing tanks left, right, and center. It just makes no sense to me. So, a little bit irritated with that. I'm not totally sure, and I'm just, again, in the comments, is this normal? Is this common? Is this whatever? So yeah, pain in the ass. Anyway, so we're going to pick up a Guardian Druid here. Our friend is going to actually do some tanking after we hang out for a moment, so speed up until then, or cut until then. It won't take long. Frankly, I probably just won't cut it. What else can I really talk about? Paladin heals. I'll talk about Paladin heals, at least at level 50. The 1 through 50 experience, if you will. I'm 52, so close enough. Oh god, okay. This is a perfect case of Paladin heals. So yeah, I'm not paying attention. Don't get me wrong. I'm not paying attention, but literally, all I can do is spam. Now, partially this is druids are currently at their weakest state, as far as I'm concerned. After this, I believe they get some cooldowns. Everyone seems to get their cooldowns around level 55 or so, and he's not quite there. Like, I know I get my cooldowns at 55, 56, 70 for Holy Paladin. I'm not sure what level the druids get their cooldowns again. But this seems to be like a really weak point for most tanks, and druid is not having fun. But why is it that I just have to spam, 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 spam? And literally, I'm just casting Flash Heal over and over and over again. I feel like that's totally wrong. I feel like that's not optimal. And yeah, doing some beacon play and moving beacons around, if you're really fancy. I'm just not fancy enough, and honestly, when I'm just spamming the tank, there's no one to put the beacon on. Like, I could put the beacon on Krabby, and that's me accidentally healing and dispelling myself, so well done me. And you'll kind of notice as I go through this dungeon, I get a little bit better at hitting the holy Holy Shock on cooldown a lot better. It's probably the biggest thing that I figure out. It turns out this dungeon lasted about 45 minutes. And in that 45-minute period, I got a lot more comfortable with the buttons. So this was a good... And so I'm just inspecting the tank, mostly because I saw him as a boomkin. And at this point, I didn't realize that he was fully Guardian. Now, he's not picking the talents I would pick, but never mind. Whatever. Not a big deal. I just double-checking that he's in the correct spec for tanking, especially in here. So, he's kind enough to pay attention to my mana. Not every tank does. And off he goes. So the way it kind of works, for people who don't know how Holy Paladin works, at least their really basic core, because obviously there's a lot of subtlety to it with your aura mastery, and rule of law. So what I'm talking about there, I don't have it yet at this level, but your mastery is you do more healing the closer you are to the target. And then Rule of Law is a talent that increases your holy spells range. I believe it's all holy spells. I'm not sure if it might just be heals. Anyway, increases the range of all your holy spells. And so you get bonus healing off of it, and a lot of positioning play that goes on, especially since your standard AoE is a cone in front of you, which also is one of the more interesting bits about Paladin. That's about all the good things I'm going to say about it. But their basic rotation, the way it works is you put Holy Shock on the target. It does about 2 heals worth of healing most of the time. If it crits for half the tank's health. It's great. And then that's it. You just spam Holy Light after that, basically. Woohoo! So, right. Holy Light is your slow, cheap heal. And then Flash of Light is your fast, expensive heal with the higher throughput. After that, the only other thing to talk about is Infusion of Light. The way Infusion of Light works is it's procced off of your Holy Shock, and it procs relatively frequently. No, not there. It procs relatively frequently, and every time it procs, your next Flash of Light is higher crit chance or bigger heal. It doesn't feel all that much bigger, so I hesitate to say it's bigger. I'd have to go read the tooltip and just double check. But it should do more throughput overall. And then your Flash of Light is way faster casting. Here's an Infusion of Light now, and Flash of Light. Like I said, it doesn't feel like it does more healing, but Holy Light, definitely. There you go. That is Holy Light. Definitely way faster than Flash. So, really interesting Infusion of Light. So this is our third tank, Ubek. And it turns out he's a really good tank. He realizes that he's not super crazy overpowered. And I just ask him to go slow, and I type terribly, so apologies for that. But turns out he does it fine. And this is the part that I don't really understand, and the part that I think makes this dungeon a little bit inspirational, especially if you're an awful healer like I am, and playing a class that you don't like, and you're just starting out, new class, never seen the dungeon before. I don't remember Stratholme Main or Undead side. I just did Undead, and it was still better than this, but still awful. The tank just didn't push Iron for it once in the whole thing. It was glorious. If I'm still rambling at the end of this, maybe I'll tack on a couple of seconds of that footage. But basically it's kind of stick it through, because in the end we got through it. Right? I hung out, all the DPS hung out. It's only the tanks that rotated through, and in the end we got all the way to the end. Cotton Candy did leave right before we got to the final boss, but that was because he didn't want to do the run back. He released Spirit, and I knew enough not to. I was also dead in that pull. But there's the Unforgiven. I have no idea what the Unforgiven does. He just did nothing, as far as I'm concerned. So, I don't know, whatever. And this is kind of the first time that Ubek can screw us all over and run off and get the next pull, right? So again, I'm just spam, 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 spam. No idea really what to think. Here comes Patchwork Horror. And like I said, really screw us over. I picnic pretty hard here. I'm not even sure what I'm thinking. I'm like running off, running back, running away. Alright, terrible, terrible things. If you're a healer and you just saw somebody shoot me. I'd like to consider myself a main healer, and like I'm just sitting here going, and I think the druid helps. No, this was he used a cooldown. Used lay on hands or something. No idea what he actually did. I assume he used lay on hands or something. But unless that was whatever their heal is called. For those of you, I used to, well, still do actually, hate healing paladins. And today I hate them for completely different reasons than I hate everyone else. Or hated them prior to kind of the late Legion BFA. So I was a really newbie healer for the longest time. So a little bit about me and my history with the game. I started in the Burning Crusade with a priest. Started the Holy Priest. My very first dungeon ever was a TBC run of Dead Mines. I was level 10. My friend had a group of randoms, and he said, "Yeah, come heal for us. You're a priest, right?" And at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. Push the buttons, heal the things. I was a clicker. Obviously, it was like the third day I'd ever played WoW. I was just level 10. Third day ever. Of course I'm clicking. Of course I'm not healing anybody in the dungeon. Luckily, though, I'm pretty sure everyone in there, I don't remember totally, but I'm pretty sure everyone in there was like super overhealed. Or super over geared, super over leveled. I think we had like a level 20s, level 30s kind of thing. It was dumb. So anyway, I was kind of the first dungeon experience, and it was good. Like everyone there, obviously, it was back in the Burning Crusade, so everyone there kind of realizes that the content's a lot harder than it became, especially kind of end of Wrath, when Dungeon Finder was first introduced. It was still reasonably difficult, but a lot easier than it was in the Burning Crusade Classic. And I mean, not to say that the Burning Crusade in Classic or the Burning Crusade holds a candle to Classic. I never played in Classic, so I don't know. But I know that the Burning Crusade and Wrath were a little bit more difficult, and then the world nerfs over a long period of time. But kind of since that day, I've always enjoyed dungeoning and healing, and it was kind of a calling for me. So then played Priest till kind of early to mid Wrath. Before Dungeon Finder came out, I quit my Priest and became a Druid, and that's kind of where I stayed. So today I consider myself a main Druid, though currently in BFA I'm working on a Monk. There goes Timmy the Cruel. I think he knocked back the tank once. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention there. Just did reasonable damage. Okay, good enough. That's one of the things with the new, it's no longer new, couple years old now, model of healing. The modern era of healing, if you will, is that healers actually do really good damage. And if you ever, and this is, I'm not going to call out anyone because that would just be rude, and obvious. Also, he's way better than me at the game. But every time, so there's a couple of people I watch do higher level mythics and raiding. He's not a main healer. But when I see him heal, and every time he just stands there, it just makes me cringe. Just, please, guys, just cast Smite. Just cast Smite for me, please. I know you're holy. Cast Smite. So, all your healers should be doing good amount of damage. In general, I think. Like, it doesn't take all that long to drop Consecration on the ground. And in the level 15 talent I've selected, I believe I mentioned it, and then never completed my thought. I took the cooldown reduction. So every time I cast Crusader Strike, cast use Crusader Strike, Holy Shocks cooldowns reduced by 2 seconds or something like that. Here, I want to talk about dispelling strategy. So, during these mobs, they obviously root people on the ground, and I never dispel a single one. But I'm thinking about it each time. So, in that last one, it was myself and the hunter that was rooted by it. And so it was a ranged DPS, and I didn't need to move. So we're good. I can save my dispel for something else. Again, it happens where, here it is, I'm rooted in the tank. With the tank, it's going to fall off right away, and I'm not concerned about Frostbolt. So I don't need to move. I'm in melee range, frankly. It doesn't matter. So I'm pretty happy with the dispelling. Basically, I did no dispelling, but I did it on purpose, so it's all good. So if you're like, oh my god, he's so terrible at dispelling, even though that's what he's working on, yeah. Yeah, that part was intentional. So a little bit about history of the game. I've been druid healing since late Wrath, and one of the things that, if you've done Dungeon Finder when it was relatively new, I mean, even Cataclysm, Mists, everything was the healer's fault. Everything was the healer's fault. If you did a pull and it was terrible, healer's fault. If the group wiped or the tank died, it was the healer's fault. Now, admittedly, back then, I was an awful, garbage, put me in a dumpster healer. I would have kicked me for being a terrible healer. It wasn't till Mists that I kind of figured out how to do it properly. And then since then I've been kind of, I don't want to say practicing it, well, obviously practicing it, just playing lots, but really identifying what it is that I'm doing wrong. Like, I record the footage not so that I can share it with people, but so that I can watch the video again and say, here's what I'm doing wrong, here's what I missed. Try and do that better next time. So this pull is great. This is probably one of my favorite things. So I get charged, and then I get charged again. Meanwhile, right, I'm trying to line of sight everything because I picked a aggro, and the tank's dying, and I have to move because I have to pull everything into the pack, otherwise I'm gonna die. So that was a bit of fun. So the pull looks awful. I mean, it is awful. There's no control, no one is paying attention. We've got a bubble going on here so that he can pull aggro off of people. I've still got my bubble, I don't end up using it. We've got the druid, he's going to throw out a couple of off heals, I believe, this pull. Or he already did. Everyone's rooted, only the ranged are currently rooted, so we're all good there. Then again, everyone here is ranged, so we're still all good there. But it ended up being a non-issue, this pull, so it looked terrifying, and I kind of mentioned that to the group that, oh my gosh, that was... But turns out to be a non-issue. But nowadays, in Legion, I kind of noticed this mostly. It was still, even Draenor, it was always blame the healer still, at least in my opinion. And that was when I considered myself to be actually reasonable at healing. Like, it was definitely not me. It was definitely other people at that point. Not to say that I never made any mistakes. Just your average normal. Most of the time, if we died, and this guy Shadowbolt fall in, of course, I'm terribly positioned, so I can't hit anyone with Light of Dawn. But whatever. Not to say that it was totally my fault, and I moved to catch the next Shadowbolt volley, and every single one after this gets interrupted, so it becomes a non-issue, but that movement was for the Shadowbolt volley, not because I felt like moving. So, in Legion, I think it was Mythic Plus. I really think it was Mythic Plus that changed the general attitude of people, and this has been kind of the case throughout the game, wherever you look, in the game, in normal Dungeon Finder, in random heroics, in the Mythic Plus and the pre-made group finder, on the forums, in LFR, though I don't do LFR, in normal, in heroic, though again, those are usually guild activities. Semi-organized pugs. Guild. Semi-organized pug activities. But the kind of blame the healer has gone out the window. As long as you're semi-competent, I think that you're probably the safest spot to be in. Here's me Holy Lock, so I'm going to position to a slightly better location. Use the time effectively. And here's some off heals getting thrown out. Probably don't need them because he used Wild Growth and no one else was damaged in the tank. So if you're going to throw out some off heals, go for it. Feel free. I love it. If I don't have to work, I can do more DPS. And that's frankly way more fun. With the new Legion model, everyone's got DPS, so fun. If we're going to throw out some off heals, throw out the off heals that actually matter. Anyway, because you just hit the overhealing meters and do absolutely no healing at all. Just glorious. I'll talk about the overhealing meter actually if I've got some time. We've got some space left in this dungeon, but we're starting to run out. Anyway, still trying to wrap up thoughts on BFA and the new, or Legion and the new heal strategy and kind of why attitudes have changed. I really 100% think that attitudes have changed because people have gotten used to the idea that if they step in something, they are dead. Now, obviously in normals, most of the time, you can stand in all the fire, and it just doesn't matter. You aren't going to take enough damage that you even have to be healed through it. And if you do, any healer with any amount of salt is going to have no problems getting through it. But the moment you hit higher mythics, now you've got a problem. And as the player base kind of gets older and a bit more mature, and the players who get frustrated because I'm the tank, I run in, pull all the mobs, healer needs to keep me alive, those players with that attitude have cycled out of the game. So the community is a lot older, and the community has gotten a lot more, not skilled. Well, I think the average player's gotten more skilled, but the average player in Dungeons is still about the same, I think. That was probably an oxymoron, I should clarify. I think the average player has not done more content, they've just played more content. So as the game has progressed post-Cataclysm, that was kind of the easiest, maybe even like Legion, early Legion, so WoD. Then the world's kind of ramped up a little bit in difficulty since 7.2, and if you were paying attention to the chat way at the beginning, I was complaining about that. So I think the average player has gotten better, but the world's also gotten harder at the same rate. So what you find is that the average player is doing about the same amount of things in terms of effectiveness as they were doing prior, even though they've gotten better. But I think what's happened is the higher tier players, the guys who are doing the mythics, are becoming a larger portion of the total player base. The player base has become a lot more mature, and those players are saying, no, tank, that was your fault, or no, DPS, that was your fault, and not letting people get away with this attitude of blame the healer, blame the tank, blame someone else. There, no, that was you, that was your mistake to fix. So I think that's kind of attributed, or is what I attribute to the better attitude I find in the dungeons. In all these cases, I think the tanks could have organized a rally to kick me if they really wanted to, and nobody did. They all left because their expectation was not being met. And so instead of kicking the healer until their expectation is met, they leave themselves. And I think that shift has been a really positive change for the player base and for the game in general. So I should talk about why my meters down in the bottom left are as they are. So the damage done meter is one for fun, because I like seeing all the numbers, and even though I'm the healer, it makes me pretty happy when I compete on that damage meter, though I don't expect to in general. And the second one is for currently there's a couple of mechanics that reduce damage. So the prison, I forget what the name is, like Kultiris is, no, it's Kultiris is the, anyway, the prison dungeon in BFA, whatever it is. The wardens in there have a shout that they do. No, it's interruptible, and nobody interrupts it. I don't understand why, because if you don't interrupt it, you're directly impacting your damage. Just interrupt it, right? But nobody does, so whatever. Then what I do for the dispel is I look who's doing the most damage. That's the person I'm going to dispel on those targets. So that's one of the reasons I've got the damage meters. Again, I like to compete with it, and it's fun. And most of that one's just for fun. For the overhealing meter, I have overhealing as a total, because some bosses or some pulls, you just overheal everyone. Hit an AoE, it only hits 3 people. Right? Not ideal. This one, we get a little bit confused on the blacksmith side. I'm looking for it too. I just forgot it was there. I look at the... Right, this is when I realize, oh, that's what we're doing. So I turn around and run back. Anyway. So that's why... Or the overhealing meter is there, because what I'm doing, another part of what I'm doing to improve, so I'm trying to hit really fantastic dispels all the time. I'm not very good at that yet. And more when I'm working on the other half of it is keeping my overhealing done to a minimum. So my goal for pushing is under 5%. I kind of have come from spamming a lot harder, and now I'm way better at picking out the spells. So that's been a lot more successful. That's kind of why I've started now focusing on getting amazing dispels. So I'm just, what does this dispel do? And then I'll be dispelling on cooldown here. I'm paying attention to that in this bull. But I've gone from about 30% overhealing. Keep in mind that that's on a druid, so paladin's generally a little bit easier to have smaller amounts of overhealing. But even my druids come down from 30% to like 8, 9, 10%. My paladin's probably the easiest one. I'm running 9%. My monk is also, I'm pretty confident on that and not hitting the overhealing. But that's what that is. The only one I'm giving myself a break on right now is Discipline. Because, yeah. Discipline heals funny. But I won't get into Discipline. This is a really good example of what my positioning should look like. So you saw that Light of Dawn. When I turned just slightly. I'm in melee range. If I need to, or if I have the opportunity to melee, I'm really close to the tank, so I have my mastery. Or when I get my mastery, I don't have it yet. But when I get my mastery, I'll be doing that additional 15% healing. And then when I use Light of Dawn, it hits everyone. It hits the entire party. And then all of that healing gets amplified because of my beacon onto the tank. So that's a case of where I kind of want to be positioning all the time. And yeah, the camera angle's not the best because of the halls, but that's the idea behind positioning. And here is an example of awful positioning. You'll see that I'm going to want to cast Light of Dawn right away, and I do apologize if it's not Light of Dawn. I'm not going to look. And you saw me back up down the hallway in order to cast it. Here we go. Right? That was awful, and the tank's now really close to dead, and you can see the druid had to go off and heal to cover for my mistakes. So that was a horrible, horrible mistake. I had to move, cast, move again in order to get the healing off, and someone needed to jump in. Otherwise, we would have lost the tank, and definitely would have wiped there. Well, maybe not wiped, but definitely would not have been good. So better for next time, run through the pack to stand behind the pack and cast it into the hallway. So that's kind of a little adjustment thing that I'm going to do next time. And you can see if even right now I'm already doing that adjustment, and then the tank runs off. Right? But I'm already identified that one and doing that adjustment. But that's why I record all my gameplay, is so that I can watch it back and catch those types of things that I missed. I don't watch through every dungeon. and tank's dead. There he goes. I'm just spamming. Yes, yes. I definitely should have been casting Holy Light, but I was just way too far. I was panicking. It was awful. And I'm also, because of that flash heal spam and never casting another heal, I'm out of mana. And so this is, if you recall the first time I did this, had my camera turn in the wrong direction, and I got run over, and it happens to be again. That was just, oh my gosh. That was way too much fun. I loved it. That was a good moment for me. And of course, our druid friend battle resed the tank late, but he did it. And then the tank just laid there anyway. So if the tank had been up, I probably would not have died, but still, what a dumb way to go. Oh, glorious. And so our friend, the druid, who was doing way too much work and also was off spec for some reason, is once again carrying the group for us. So Corvus, thank you for the res, and thank you very much for carrying my sorry ass. This is pretty funny. I'm watching the tank, right? I'm eating up, and there he goes. I'm like not even ready yet. Like, oh, okay, bye tank. But it's all good. I can get there, and he's gonna pull into the hallway, and it's all good. Galford. Not that I'm doing a boss dungeon guide, but Galford does like no damage at all. Oh yeah, and I remembered the hunter left the group just before I do the dispel, making sure I know what it does. Hopefully I learn, but sometimes you need to see it like 10, 15, 20, 30 times, and then you don't come back to Stratholme and you just don't remember. I've definitely done this dungeon before, not on this character, but definitely done this dungeon before. Many a time before. Anyway, you'll see that my dispels hopefully are a lot better on this. Maybe not optimal, because it's not quite instant cast. Yeah, it was pretty pathetic, actually. That was pretty pathetic, actually. So, once again, just to cycle back as we get to the final boss, to say, is that the experience that everyone has with Stratholme? Because, not that keep in mind, I'm not advocating for a nerf or for a change in the dungeon or for a change in attitudes of tanks, or well, actually a change of attitude for tanks would be nice, but I'm not advocating for anything to change, because I love the slightly harder content, and not that I would consider this overly difficult, but it was a ton of fun. It was a good challenge. I had to be on my toes, awake. I definitely got a lot more comfortable with pushing Holy Shock on cooldown. Got a little bit more comfortable with just the buttons on Paladin in general. I didn't have to, well I did, I tried to cast Holy Shield or Bop. Blessing Protection, there it is. Tried to cast Bop on a couple of people, failed because I'm going too late on Bop. Whatever. So, a couple of things, learned a couple of things, definitely need to improve on a couple of things. Other things I'm very pleased with how they went, but when, man, I mean, one, that would not have happened on an easier dungeon. Two, why is that so painful for people to kind of get their heads through? Because Stratholme itself is not overly difficult, but everything else is just easier, right? So, advice for tanks, just pull one group at a time if you're in Stratholme. Just go a little bit slower. It's all good. It's all good. Nobody's going to get mad. Nobody's going to be upset, because if they are, they'll pull something else. They will cause your entire group to wipe, and that person will then be kicked. That's basically how it'll go. So, thanks for watching. If you have any experiences in Stratholme, either main or undead side, then let me know, because I'd love to hear about those other stories. And thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you had a good laugh along with me. Talk to you later. Bye.